At the end of the street stood an old house, abandoned for years. It looked eerie, with peeling paint, dusty windows, and a front door that always seemed slightly ajar, as if waiting for someone to enter. The locals whispered stories about a tragedy that had once unfolded there, though no one ever shared the full details. That night, curiosity won over reason. The air was cold, carrying the scent of wet soil from the evening rain. The dim streetlights barely illuminated the yard, overgrown with tall grass and weeds. The chirping of crickets and the rustling of leaves in the wind added to the ominous atmosphere. As the old wooden door was pushed open, it let out a long, creaking sound that seemed to break the silence that had settled over the place for years. The air inside was stifling, as if the house had sealed itself off from the outside world. Every step on the creaky floor sent small echoes through the empty rooms, and thick dust coated every surface. Then, it happened, the sound. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate, yet no one was visible. The sound was so distinct, it felt as though someone was walking in the next room. A chill ran down the spine, but the feet kept moving forward, cautiously exploring each room. Nothing, just broken furniture, faded wallpaper, and graffiti scrawled on the walls. The footsteps continued, sometimes drawing closer, sometimes fading away. Occasionally, they stopped suddenly, leaving an eerie silence in their place. The fear grew with each passing moment, yet something compelled the exploration to continue, like the house held a secret it wanted to reveal. Then, without warning, the footsteps stopped directly behind. The air turned icy, and an unsettling feeling of being watched crept in. The silence was suffocating. The icy air pressed against the back like an invisible weight. The feeling of being watched grew stronger. But no matter how much the head wanted to turn, the body refused to move. It was as if fear itself had rooted everything in place. Moments passed, though it felt like hours. The footsteps didn't return, but something else replaced them, a faint scratching sound. It came from the walls, slow and deliberate, like nails dragging across wood. The sound circled the room, growing louder and sharper, but no source could be seen. The flashlight, trembling in a nervous hand, scanned the room. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing cracked walls and broken furniture. Nothing seemed out of place, but the sound persisted, growing unnervingly close. Then, a loud asterisk thud asterisk echoed from upstairs, the kind of noise that could only come from something heavy being dropped. Despite every instinct screaming to leave, the curiosity remained, stronger than ever. The stairs groaned with each step, their protests echoing through the empty house. The hallway stretched ahead, its end swallowed in darkness. At the far end, a door stood ajar, faintly illuminated by the moonlight spilling through a broken window. Moving closer, the door creaked open wider, as if welcoming the approach. The room beyond was empty, except for a single chair placed in the center. On the chair sat a dusty, old doll with hollow eyes that seemed to follow every movement, its head tilted slightly, as if acknowledging the presence. And then, the footsteps returned. This time, they were no longer faint, they were loud, deliberate, and coming directly toward the room. The sound didn't belong to one person. It was as if several pairs of feet were approaching from all directions. Surrounding the space, the air turned frigid, and the flashlight flickered, plunging the room into near darkness. The doll, once sitting still, now lay on the floor, its face turned toward the doorway. A whisper broke the silence. It wasn't clear, but it felt close, too close. The realization hit like a thunderclap. Whatever was in the house was no longer content with being unseen. The footsteps stopped, the door slammed shut, and everything went silent. The silence after the door slammed shut was deafening. The oppressive darkness seemed alive, pressing in from all sides. The faint beam of the flickering flashlight struggled to illuminate anything in the room, casting jagged shadows that danced on the walls. The whispers began again. This time, they were unmistakably close, slow, guttural voices speaking in a language that didn't belong to this world. The cold intensified, and the feeling of being surrounded became undeniable. The sound of breathing, heavy and rasping, filled the room. Desperation took over. The door was yanked up, but it wouldn't budge. It felt like the house itself had locked its grip, refusing to let go. The whispers grew louder, blending with the relentless sound of footsteps, now circling the room. Every nerve screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. The flashlight flickered one last time before going out completely, plunging the room into pitch black. The only thing left was sound, the footsteps, the whispers, and now faint laughter. A deep, echoing laugh that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Then it stopped. Everything. The footsteps, the whispers, even the laughter. The silence was worse, heavy and suffocating, as if the entire house was holding its breath. Out of the silence came a voice, not a whisper, but a clear, bone-chilling voice that seemed to vibrate through the walls. Asterisk, why did you come here? Asterisk. The words weren't loud, but they carried a weight that felt inescapable. There was no answer, no time to think. The room exploded into chaos. The walls began to shake, the floorboards creaked and cracked, and the temperature dropped so low that frost formed on the windows. The flashlight suddenly flickered back on, illuminating the doll in the center of the room. It was no longer lying on the floor. It now sat upright, its head tilted unnaturally, with a wide, cracked grin that hadn't been there before. Its hollow eyes stared directly ahead. A final, deafening crash sounded as the door flew open, as if the house had decided to let go. Without hesitation, the escape began a mad dash through the dark hallway, down the creaking stairs, and out into the cold night air. Turning back for one last glance, the house stood silent and still, its broken windows reflecting the pale moonlight. But in one of those windows, a faint figure could be seen, a shadow standing motionless, watching. As the distance grew, the house seemed to fade into the darkness, almost as if it were never there. The sound of footsteps, faint but unmistakable, followed until the end of the road, then disappeared into the night. No one ever went back to that house. The nightmares, however, never stopped. Asterisk, asterisk, the end, asterisk, asterisk.